Grilling in the snow, you bet, it can be a lot of fun. But today's video, I'm gonna share a couple tips what to do if Mother Nature throws a curveball, like freezing your Joe shut, and or tips to help keep you comfortable as well as your grill safe so you don't do any damage while trying to enjoy some barbecue in the cold, snowy weather. Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and the winter can be a great time to enjoy your barbecue. But if your barbecue is not covered like the ones behind me, a couple crazy things can happen in the cold, snowy weather. One of them is your dome freezing shut. So that's gonna be the first thing that we're gonna cover, ironically, is what to do in the event of your dome freezing shut. And I am speaking from firsthand experience here of what not to do. I'll show you that in a second. Then I'm also going to go through some of the differences that you want to make in your startup and shutdown sequence that can help preserve the components, the internal ceramics of your Kamado, so you don't accidentally crack one of those heat deflector plates, or even worse, your firebox or your Joe itself. And then last but not least, we'll cover some adjustments that you can make in terms of the types of meals and the cooks that you can do that make cooking out in the snow and the cold a little bit more enjoyable. Let's get started. So let's start first why you should leave your dome unlatched in winter. Because if you leave it latched and we get a lot of condensation that later turns into snow, what can happen is your dome ends up freezing. The two gasket pieces freeze together, which is exactly what got me in trouble a little bit earlier in the winter on my Kamado Joe Classic 3, where it was stuck. And instead of just unlatching it and realizing it was stuck, I gave it a pull. And when I did that, what happened is my gasket came with it. And so what I'm going to do in today's video is show you how to unfreeze it if that happens to be what's going on with your Joe. And then in a future video, I'll show you how we're going to fix that. It's not a big deal, but I'll do that in a different topic. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that video with the notification bell turned on. But right now, let's unfreeze our Joe. Okay, so to unfreeze your Joe, you're going to want to start a small fire in the bottom draft door. So if you have a couple old newspapers, you can use that. Today I'm going to be using some fire starters, or if you can even fit your torch in there and you want to hold it there for about the 5 minutes or so that will take, you can go ahead and do that. But I found the fire starter cubes burn about the right level of heat for the right amount of time in order to unfreeze even the most stubborn dome. So before we get started, you want to go ahead and make sure that you can get some air out the top so that the fire doesn't extinguish itself. So if you're able to open your control tower top by sliding it or opening it all the way, go ahead and do that. The next thing that we're going to do is grab ourselves a fire starter cube. Only need one here, so break that off. And what we'll do is we're going to slide this in the bottom draft door and start a fire and let it go for about 5 minutes. Okay, so here we are at the bottom of our Classic. So what I'm just going to do is drop in our fire starter on the ashtray in the middle and then use that to slide it back in. So we'll take our map torch here, just get a fire started. Okay, so that fire starter cube is off and going. And so what we'll do is we'll just slide that back in so it's in the middle of the Joe, and that will continue to burn for about 5 to 10 minutes or so, and it'll get enough heat up in our dome that it starts to either melt the ice that is causing us to be stuck here, or maybe even in our top vent if that's where you're frozen. Let's go on to our next tip. Okay, so once you've got no issues getting into your Joe, the next thing we're going to do is cover the differences that you want to make for cold or snowy weather when it comes to starting your Joe as well as using and shutting it down. So let's use our big Joe for the example today, where I'll walk you through some of the small little tweaks that I make in this type of weather when getting started and shutting it down to not cause any undue stress on our internal ceramic components. Okay, so first let's get started by getting everything out of our Joe so that we can get a look at our charcoal here and get ready to start a fire. So let's just clear a space. Okay, so now that we've got our Kamado Joe cleaned out and ready to go, and we're ready to start a fire, there's sort of two things that we can do here. One, we can use a more gentle heat source to get started. Something like our fire starters, is that will very gradually start our fire. Or if we're going to use a hotter, faster method, like our snow-covered, torch here, let me just brush that off so we don't end up getting a bunch of snow in the Joe, is we want to not go crazy at igniting the entire coal bed. In summer, you can get away with a couple things. You could blast the entire charcoal bed here, or you could use a charcoal chimney. And so just a quick note on the charcoal chimney. In weather like this, do not use a charcoal chimney. As much fun and convenient they are at getting a really, really hot fire, if you were to take an entire chimney of burning hot coals and then dump them into our ice cold ceramics, that is a recipe for disaster. Any thermal shock of going from really cold ceramic to really hot almost instantly is a surefire way to crack something, whether it's your firebox, potentially, you could do some damage to the shell of your Joe or the the heat deflector plates that are in there. So quick little PSA, if you've got a chimney, save it for summer. Now is not the time. Let's come back to lighting our Big Joe. Okay, so back to our torch, if that's what we're going to use. You can still use the torch, but again, don't go crazy and get the entire coal bed going. We're just going to start a small fire here in the middle. Okay, so that is about the perfect amount of fire to start for cold weather or snowy weather, where we're just going to let that with air, our bottom vents open all the way. I'll open our top vent in a second, continue to come up to temperature. Again, in the summer, you can get away with just firing this and have our Big Joe up to 400 degrees in a matter of minutes. But in these sub-zero temperatures, we don't want to do that. So the next thing that we're going to do, if you are cooking indirect, I've mentioned this before in how to control your low and slow temperatures. It's equally important in winter, even if you're not going for a low and slow cook, to preheat any ceramic element that's going to be inside your grill. So if we were using our heat deflectors, which I'm not going to use today, but just for illustration, I'll drop them in if you've not seen this before, where you want to have them as part of the entire grill coming up to temperature. So a great way to do that is this pizza configuration, is that's going to allow all the heat to come up and heat our upper ceramics, at the same time gradually warm these up from their ice cold temperatures into something that we're ready to do an indirect cook with. So I'll just set these back aside, since again, we're not using them today, but if you were, that's exactly what you want to do, is at this stage, go ahead and add them in so they are part of the pre-warming activity. All right, let's close our dome and open the vent all the way and let this come up to temperature. So while we're waiting for our Big Joe to come up to temperature and we move to our final topic, which are some other adjustments that you can make to the types of things that you cook. Before we get there to our final chapter, let me just share some other ideas or potential tips or tricks that just make cooking in the cold weather even more enjoyable. And the first one would be preparation. As much preparation as you can do to have all of your ingredients and side dishes open. That will really make it a lot easier in terms of being outside in the cold, particularly just for your own comfort. The second thing I would say in winter, and I say this all the time, I sort of moved to this as a standard, but is really controlling your bottom draft door. Typically we get those gusts of wind in winter, just like it is doing today. And that cold breeze can add a lot of nice dense oxygen to your fire. And so if you wanted to control your fire two ways, one way you can do it where your bottom vent is all the way open and then you've got a very, very, very tight top draft door. And this is the sort of the worst setup for this type of weather, where you're allowing lots of air into your bottom vent, which is going to try and push your temperatures up even higher and make it more uncontrollable. And if you're doing an overnight cook and the wind dies down, now all of a sudden your fire's not getting as much oxygen as it was, and it tends to go out and throw you for a loop around 3 in the morning. So to combat that, flip the script, go down to 1 finger on the bottom, so just very regulated amount of air. In fact, really the only air getting in is what the fire is drawing in itself naturally versus being supercharged from the breeze. And then a little bit more air up top, which is going to just, again, keep that good draw going. So outside of prep and outside of some fire control best practices, the last thing that I'll leave you with is just, again, your tools. And so be sure spring and fall to check your dome thermometer. Being exposed to the elements like this, where we're, you know, really hot in the summer months to really cold in the winter, can throw your calibration off. And so if you've not seen it, I've got a video on my Kamado Joe 101 playlist, which shows you how to do this in a couple minutes in a pot of boiling water. And it will, again, help make sure that you're getting good information when it comes to making some of those adjustments on the bottom and top vent, so you can have consistent, repeatable cooks every time. Okay, and my last tip, as indicated by the Big Joe beside me now that it's up to temperature, is go ahead and adjust your cooking style to more of a grilling versus smoking. And so what I mean by that is cook with the dome open. So there's a lot of different types of cooks you can do in a grilling format. You can do chicken this way, chicken wings, burgers, steaks, etc. And one of the side benefits is at 400 or 500 degrees, this throws a ton of heat. And when it's fully up to temperature, I could stand out here in a t-shirt if I was this close to the grill and be comfortable. It's a great way to stay warm. And again, just another technique that you can use on your Joe where you're doing more of an open face grill, and all sorts of unique meal ideas that you can look for that. And as a pitmaster, a practical way to keep your fingers warm as well as yourself warm is take advantage of some of that residual heat that you've got going on inside your Kamado Joe. So that's it. It's a quick and easy one today, but thanks so much to my subscribers who went ahead and asked, hey James, I've got my Kamado Joe, but it's all tarped up for winter, or it's in storage and I can't wait to use it again. Or other questions like, is it safe? Am I able to use it? And I hope today's video helped give you confidence that yes, absolutely, it's a great way to use your Kamado Joe year-round. If you happen to be stuck and frozen shut, hopefully that's a tip that helps get you unstuck and back to grilling. As well as, last but not least, if you're looking for some new meal ideas and ways that you can stay warm and enjoy your barbecue no matter what Mother Nature has in store, trying the dome open grilling technique is a great way to continue to enjoy the outdoors no matter what the outdoors has in store. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you did, please let YouTube know by smashing that like button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Smokin' Dad BBQ, signing off.